1. Climate change tripled Europe's June heatwave deaths, study reveals. 2. Extreme heat is killing us, a new study shows how climate crisis is making heat waves more deadly. 3. Global warming linked to 500+ deaths in Europe's heatwave, new study reveals alarming link. 4. Climate change and extreme heat, the tragic story of Montse Aguilar. 5. Heatwave crisis, 2,300 deaths across Europe. Climate change impact 2023. 1. Climate change tripled Europe's June heatwave deaths, study reveals. The staggering truth is that climate change has tripled the number of deaths caused by the devastating heatwave that scorched Europe last June. But here's where it gets controversial: this silent killer is largely flying under the radar despite its deadly impact. A preliminary study analyzing a dozen major European cities reveals that planet-warming pollution was responsible for tripling the fatality count during the extreme heat event from June 23 to July 2, 2025. Scientists estimate that the intense heatwave claimed approximately 2,300 lives across these cities, with about 1,500 of those deaths directly linked to human-driven climate change, which has intensified global temperatures and made weather extremes more dangerous than ever before. Milan suffered the most significant loss in raw numbers, with 317 out of 499 heat-related deaths attributed to the effects of climate change. Paris and Barcelona also faced severe impacts, while London recorded 273 heat deaths, 171 of which scientists tied to human influence on the climate. Malcolm Mystery, an epidemiologist at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and co-author of the study, emphasized, heatwaves are often called silent killers for a reason. While media reports highlight only a handful of deaths in countries like Spain, France, and Italy, the reality is that thousands more succumb to the unforgiving heat, often unnoticed and unreported. The analysis was conducted by the World Weather Attribution Group using well-established scientific methods, although the findings have yet to undergo peer review. This group attributes about 2/3 of the heatwave-related fatalities directly to climate change. Elderly individuals bore the brunt of this crisis, with 88% of climate-induced deaths occurring among people over 65 years old. The study also highlights a common misconception: most heatwave victims die quietly at home or in hospitals, rarely drawing media attention. Unlike the visible destruction left by wildfires or storms, heatwaves leave no obvious wreckage, explained Ben Clark, a climate scientist at Imperial College London and co-author. Their impacts are invisible, yet they devastate lives. Even a small rise in temperature, as little as 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, can mean the difference between life and death for thousands. Using epidemiological models, the researchers estimated heat-related mortality across cities like Paris, London, Madrid, and Rome over the 10-day heatwave period. They then compared these fatalities to a hypothetical scenario where humans had not driven planetary warming through fossil fuel combustion and environmental degradation. It's important to note that the temperature-death relationships in their models were based on local mortality data up to 2019, which might not fully reflect recent adaptations cities have made to heat. Nevertheless, climate change is estimated to have increased temperatures in some places by up to 4 degrees Celsius, causing an additional 1,500 deaths. Shockingly, this death toll from just one heatwave surpasses fatalities from other recent, climate-exacerbated natural disasters, such as the 224 deaths during Spain's 2024 floods and the 243 deaths across northwest Europe in 2021. Research indicates that on average, heat kills about 44,000 people annually in Europe over several decades. The extraordinary loss of 2,300 lives in just 12 cities during this single event suggests that summer 2025 could be one of the deadliest yet. The EU's Copernicus Earth Observation Service reported that June 2025 ranked as the third hottest June globally on record. It also highlighted an exceptional marine heatwave in the western Mediterranean, where the average sea surface temperature hit a record 27 degrees Celsius, the highest ever measured for June. Copernicus also recorded a sharp rise in tropical nights, where temperatures failed to drop below 20 degrees Celsius, making restful sleep difficult. Some regions in Spain experienced up to 24 tropical nights in June, 18 more than usual. Samantha Burgess, Deputy Director of Copernicus's Climate Change Service, warned that these record-breaking temperatures intensified the heat stress felt across Europe. In our warming world, heatwaves are expected to become more frequent, severe, and impact more people, she said. Mercator Ocean, a non-profit research group managing Copernicus's marine monitoring, found that nearly two-thirds of the Mediterranean Sea experienced marine heatwaves rated as strong or worse, the largest spread ever recorded. These elevated sea temperatures disrupt marine life, killing plants that fish depend on and causing mass die-offs that have become increasingly common. Kane von Schuckman, a scientist at Mercator Ocean, expressed particular concern about the repetitive nature of this heat stress. When ecosystems face repeated heatwaves, their vulnerability grows, making recovery harder each time, she explained. This study shines a harsh light on the lethal and often overlooked consequences of climate change-driven heatwaves. It raises important questions. Are we doing enough to recognize and address these silent killers? Should governments and communities prioritize heatwave preparedness with the same urgency as they do for more visible disasters? What more can be done to protect the most vulnerable among us, especially the elderly? We invite you to share your thoughts. Do you agree that heatwaves deserve greater attention, or do you think current measures are sufficient? Let's discuss in the comments below. 2. Extreme heat is killing us. A new study shows how climate crisis is making heatwaves more deadly. When the mercury rises to extreme levels, lives are at stake. A recent study highlights how heatwaves, fueled by human-driven climate change, are becoming far more lethal than ever before. This isn't just about discomfort, it's a matter of survival for thousands. And this is the part most people miss. The true toll of rising temperatures often goes unseen, silently claiming lives across continents. Take Europe, for instance. Earlier this summer, a relentless heatwave scorched the continent, pushing temperatures well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit in many regions. Tourist hotspots were forced to close their doors, wildfires raged uncontrollably through forests, and residents scrambled to find relief in cities where air conditioning is uncommon. The result? A grim wake of fatalities that left scientists alarmed. According to a groundbreaking rapid analysis conducted by researchers from Imperial College London and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, approximately 2,300 people died during a 10-day period of blistering heat spanning 12 major European cities, including iconic locations like Paris, Rome, Athens, and Madrid. Here's the kicker: nearly 65% of those deaths, or roughly 1,500 individuals, would likely not have occurred if global warming hadn't amplified the heat. How did they arrive at these numbers? The team used historical weather data to model what conditions might look like without centuries of fossil fuel emissions driving up global temperatures by an average of 1.3 degrees Celsius. Their findings revealed that climate change made this particular heat wave anywhere from 1 to 4 degrees Celsius, 1.8 to 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter. That seemingly small shift in temperature had catastrophic consequences, proving once again that even modest increases can unleash devastating effects on human health. But here's where it gets controversial. While older adults bore the brunt of the crisis, accounting for 88% of excess deaths, the young weren't spared either. Nearly 200 of the victims were between ages 20 and 65, underscoring how indiscriminate extreme heat can be. Pre-existing medical conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, and respiratory ailments made matters worse, turning manageable summer days into life-threatening situations. In some cities, the role of climate change was especially stark. Madrid, for example, saw around 90% of its heat-related fatalities linked directly to our warming planet. Yet, this investigation focused solely on 12 urban areas, a mere snapshot of the broader devastation. Experts suggest the actual death toll across Europe could reach tens of thousands when considering rural communities and smaller towns. Heat waves don't leave behind charred landscapes or flooded streets, explained Ben Clark, one of the study's authors and a researcher at Imperial College London. Their damage is invisible but deeply destructive. A rise of just 2 or 3 degrees Celsius can determine whether someone lives or dies. So, what's the solution? Friederike Otto, another climate scientist involved in the research, emphasized the urgent need for action. We must stop burning fossil fuels to prevent heat waves from growing hotter and deadlier, she said. Cities also need to adapt quickly by embracing renewable energy, designing infrastructure to handle extreme heat, and protecting the most vulnerable populations. Outside experts echoed the gravity of these findings. Akshay Dheeras, a research scientist at the University of Reading who wasn't part of the study, noted, "The robust methods employed leave no room for doubt. Climate change is already a deadly force in Europe." Meanwhile, Richard Allen, a professor of climate science at the same institution, added that this report aligns with overwhelming evidence showing how climate change intensifies heat waves. What we consider a moderate heat today may soon become dangerous, and record-breaking heat will push us into uncharted territory, he warned. And there's more to the story. While parts of the globe bake under scorching sun, others face a different kind of chaos: inundation from torrential rains and catastrophic floods. It's a reminder that climate change isn't a one-dimensional threat, its impacts ripple across ecosystems and societies in complex ways. This raises important questions worth pondering. Are we doing enough to mitigate the escalating dangers posed by climate change? How can governments, businesses, and individuals work together to protect the most vulnerable? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because the conversation doesn't end here. 3. Global warming linked to 1,500+ deaths in Europe's heatwave. New study reveals alarming link. Imagine a world where the air itself becomes a killer. A new study published on July 9, 2025, reveals that human-driven climate change directly contributed to at least 1,500 additional deaths during Europe's recent heat wave, a staggering number that underscores the invisible but lethal impact of global warming. As temperatures soared across the continent, the research, conducted by Imperial College London and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, paints a harrowing picture of how fossil fuel emissions are turning heat waves into silent death traps. But here's where it gets controversial. The study estimates that 88% of those 1,500 climate-linked fatalities were individuals over the age of 65, a demographic already more vulnerable to extreme heat. By comparing real-world death rates during the June-July heatwave with simulated scenarios in a world without human-caused global warming, scientists concluded that climate change amplified the heat by 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, 3.6 to 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit, transforming what might have been a severe but survivable event into a deadly crisis. England and Spain shattered their historical June temperature records, while France shuttered schools and Sardinia grappled with raging wildfires. The 12 cities analyzed, ranging from Paris to Rome, saw a total of 2,300 deaths, with the researchers emphasizing that the 1,500 figure tied to global warming is likely an underestimate. Gary Constantinoudis, a biostatistician and co-author, likened heatwaves to silent killers because most deaths occur in private spaces like homes and hospitals, often unnoticed by the public. And this is the part most people miss: the study isn't just another climate report. It's a real-time analysis of how climate change is already costing lives. Unlike traditional assessments that focus on weather patterns, this research dives into the human toll, using robust methods to connect rising temperatures to mortality. Akshay Dheeras, a climate scientist at the University of Reading, compared Earth to an oven being permanently cranked up. In the past, heat waves were like short bursts of heat, he explained. Now, the baseline is hotter, so even minor increases can push temperatures into lethal territory. The findings also highlight a glaring infrastructure problem. Much of Europe's architecture, thick-walled buildings, minimal air conditioning, was designed for cooler climates. As Richard Allen, another University of Reading expert, noted, the evidence is blindingly obvious that heat waves are more intense and dangerous than ever before. Yet, the study's non-peer-reviewed status has sparked debate. Critics argue that while the methods are sound, the conclusions might be rushed. Does this mean we should question the urgency of the findings, or does it reinforce the need for immediate action? The researchers warn that unless the world rapidly transitions to net zero emissions, future heat waves will be even deadlier. The oven is already on, Dheeras said. The question is, will we turn it off in time? Share your thoughts below. Do you think governments are doing enough to prepare for these climate-driven crises, or will it take more tragedies to spur meaningful change? For Climate Change and Extreme Heat, the tragic story of Montse Aguilar. Picture this: working outdoors as temperatures soar beyond 40 degrees Celsius (104 degrees Fahrenheit). That's the reality Montse Aguilar faced when she began her June 28 shift in Barcelona, where a severe heatwave had turned the city into an oven. The 51-year-old street cleaner wasn't a race. Her daily task was sweeping through the sweltering Rovell district, a mix of crowded streets and tourist hotspots that seemed to absorb every extra degree of heat. But by 9:30 p.m., she was messaging friends about excruciating cramps in her arms, chest, and neck. Hours later, she'd become one of the tragicest victims of Spain's record-breaking temperatures. 1. This isn't just a local crisis. From the Mediterranean coast to the Alps, Western Europe is grappling with extreme heat that's rewriting summer norms. France, Italy, and Greece all saw unprecedented June temperatures, part of a broader pattern where climate change is accelerating dangerous heat events. But here's where the conversation gets complicated. How many lives is society willing to sacrifice for progress? Montse's death highlights a grim reality. Essential workers performing physically demanding jobs outdoors face disproportionate risks. 2. Scientifico y humanamente, the math is clear, heat waves like this are becoming more frequent and intense due to global warming. But what's less obvious is how communities will adapt. Should governments prioritize cooling infrastructure for outdoor workers, or is individual preparedness the answer? Centering Montse's story, let's ask, ¿son suficientes las medidas actuales? ¿Hemos hecho bastante para proteger a los más vulnerables? The controversy lies in balancing economic productivity with human safety, a debate that requires your voice. What's your stance? ¿Deberían los trabajadores recibir protección adicional? ¿O es responsabilidad individual? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. 5. Heatwave crisis, 2,300 deaths across Europe. Climate change impact 2023. Hold on to your seats. The human cost of climate change is no longer theoretical, it's claiming lives by the thousands right now across Europe. As scorching temperatures continue to punish the continent for the third time this season, Greece took emergency measures by closing the Acropolis and banning outdoor work. Firefighters battle relentless wildfires across Greece, Spain, France, Turkey, and Syria, with Marseille suffering particularly brutal consequences. Over 100 people were injured in the southern French city, and fires grew so severe that the international airport temporarily halted operations. One local resident, whose home was damaged in the blazes, voiced a raw truth: "We've got just one planet, yet we act like we have spares." Our refusal to change unsustainable lifestyles is quite literally scheduling humanity's end. And it's not just us, this is ecocide. The squirrels and wildlife I saw daily are dead. Their return could take decades, if they ever come back at all. But here's the alarming revelation you can't ignore. A recent report confirms approximately 2,300 people died from heat exposure across just 12 European cities during June's heat wave. Even more controversially, scientists directly linked 1,500 of these deaths to the climate crisis, proof that our environmental choices have body counts. Now let's tackle the uncomfortable question: should governments declare climate emergencies faster when heat fatalities mount? Or are we overstating the crisis? I'm eager to hear where you stand. Drop your boldest take in the comments below.